Hi, I'm Rachel. Well, October is coming to an end, so it's time for another book haul. I'm thinking that next year I won't buy books as regularly and I won't have as many older books to show you. But this year I've been doing a book haul every month, so I thought I'd round out the year this way. Not that that matters to any of you, probably. I'm doing a bunch of housekeeping for myself in my head. Another thing that really only matters to me is that technically this book haul is from both September and October, because I decided to focus my September book haul on this really cool scavenger hunt for banned books that my library did. So I'll link to that video down below. Okay, now on to the actual books. This one I showed you in my National Book Festival vlog that I did at the very beginning of September. I got this book signed. It's The Leavers by Lisa Ko, and I bought it and got it signed by the author, and it made me really excited. And since then, this book has been making a little bit of a splash because it's been highlighted on the National Book Awards, so yay! I'll read from the flap to tell you what it's about. One morning, Deming Guo's mother, Polly, an undocumented Chinese immigrant, goes to her job at a nail salon and never comes home. No one can find any trace of her. With his mother gone, 11-year-old Deming is left mystified and bereft. Eventually adopted by a pair of well-meaning white professors, Deming is moved from the Bronx to a small town upstate and renamed Daniel Wilkinson. But far from all he's ever known, Daniel struggles to reconcile his adoptive parents' desire that he assimilate with his memories of his mother and the community that he left behind. Told from the perspective of both Daniel, he grows into a directionless young man, kind of spoilery, and Polly, Ko's novel gives us one of fiction's most singular mothers. Loving and selfish, determined and frightened, Polly is forced to make one heart-wrenching choice after another. Set in New York and China, The Leavers is a vivid examination of borders and belonging. It's a moving story of how a boy comes into his own when everything he loves is taken away, and how his mother learns to live with the mistakes of the past. I was really drawn to this book because I'm fascinated by juxtapositions and identity, and what it's like when you have to navigate between two disparate ones, and how it affects the relationships in your life. And so I was mostly focusing on Deming come Daniel, but now I'm also really interested in the mother and the fact that it seems like Lisa Ko isn't just painting her as a victim or anything. It seems like maybe she's going to be a complicated character in her own right, so I'm getting even more excited to read this now. These next couple of books I've already read, huzzah! And I just got them used through Barnes & Noble because I had to get them to make videos for BookTube. This one is Israel by Nava Semmel and translated from the Hebrew by Jessica Cohen. I just featured it in my long-awaited Alternative Jewish History Novels of 2016 video, so I'll link that down below. As a quick recap, this takes a minor American event from the 1820s when this Jewish American diplomat bought an island in New York and attempted to make it a haven for Jews, but it didn't turn out. People didn't show up to be his refugees, as it were, but Semmel goes forth and imagines what it would be like if this island became Israel, an actual haven for Jews, and existing until the 21st century. And she tells it in 3 parts, in normal 2001, in alternative 2001, and then also in 1825 during the historical time. And she uses a lot of different narrative techniques, and some of them work better than others. I think ultimately I had a lot of theoretical problems and questions about what she was proposing, and it didn't really work so well for me, but I really liked the second part. I thought it would make a good short story in and of itself, but yep, I'm still glad I read it. Then this one I have talked about a couple of times, and I am really glad that I read it. I mean, I enjoyed it even more. This is a collection of short stories, A Basket of Apples by Shirley Faisler. It's a book that came across my desk at work a couple of years ago, something that I probably never would have known about otherwise, because it's a small collection of short stories from Canada by an author who is not really well known here, and short story writer, Canadian. She was middle-aged when she first started publishing. She writes about, or wrote about, the Jewish community in Toronto. I really loved her characters. I thought they really popped off the page, and I'm just really glad I got the chance to finally read this. Next, also in September, I went to a new, to me, used bookstore in DC and felt compelled to buy some things, of course. It was Riverby Books in Capitol Hill. And I bought first this book, The Age of Miracles by Karen Thompson Walker. I was drawn to it because of speculative literary fiction sort of feel, which is a subgenre that really intrigues me. And I'll read from the flap. Luminous, haunting, The Age of Miracles is a stunning fiction debut by a superb new writer, an unforgettable story about coming of age during extraordinary times, about people going on with their lives in an era of profound uncertainty. On a seemingly ordinary Saturday in a California suburb, Julia and her family awake to discover, along with the rest of the world, that the rotation of the Earth has suddenly begun to slow. The days and nights grow longer and longer. Gravity is affected, the environment is thrown into disarray. Yet, as she struggles to navigate an ever-shifting landscape, Julia is also coping with the normal disasters of everyday life, the fissures in her family, the loss of friends, and the hopeful anguish of love, the bizarre behavior of her grandfather who, convinced of a government conspiracy, spends his days obsessively cataloging his possessions. As Julia adjusts to the new normal, the slowing inexorably continues. With spare, graceful prose and the emotional wisdom of a born storyteller, Karen Thompson Walker has created a singular narrator in Julia and a moving portrait of a family life set against the backdrop of an utterly altered world. I get it, when it comes to the hard science, this can't really tread water, but I just love premises like this. I just love taking the opportunity to alter the world in huge ways and then juxtapose it against small family dramas. So I'm hoping that it'll live up. I actually posted a picture of this book to Facebook, and someone I went to college with who I admire said that he read it and enjoyed it. So I feel like that's a good endorsement. The second book I got from Riverby Books is another Amos Oz book, because it seems like I can't pass a used bookstore without picking up more Amos Oz. I don't know what I'm doing. This is called A Perfect Peace. It'll be my fifth Amos Oz whenever I get to reading it. And I will read from the back. Israel, just before the Six-Day War. On a kibbutz, the founders of Israel and their children struggle to come to terms with their land and with each other. The Messianic father exults in accomplishments that had once only been dreams. The son longs to establish an identity apart from his father. The fragile young wife is out of touch with reality, and the gifted and charismatic outsider seethes with emotion. Through the interplay of these brilliantly realized characters, Oz invokes an universal dilemma. And yes, this sounds like almost every other Amos Oz book I've read, but I don't care. I love it. Kibbutz life, Israel in the mid-20th century. I just love what he has to say. And I should also say who this is translated by. Let me see. I don't think it's his usual. I don't think it's Nicholas DeLange, which is unusual for him. Yes, this is Hilla Halkin, who is a famous a scholar, I believe, and not his usual translator. So that in itself is intriguing enough that even though I didn't remember his name, I knew it wasn't the usual guy. I ordered this next book, I believe, also from Barnes & Noble, because it's part of the 2016 Jewish Published Books project that I want to get through before the end of this year. And I couldn't find it at the library or interlibrary loan, but I still really wanted it. I'm just very intrigued by the premise. It's Questioning Return by Beth Kisilev. Takes place in Israel, and this is the synopsis. Questioning Return follows an ambitious graduate student as she spends a year in Jerusalem, questioning the lives of American Jews who return, both to Israel itself and to traditional religious practices. Have they changed themselves at all? Are they sincere or happier? The unexpected answers and Wendy's own experiences in Israel, including a bus bombing, a funeral, and an unexpected suicide, a love affair, and a lawsuit, lead her to reconsider her own Jewish identity and values. Initially, Wendy is certain that she's on the path to academic glory. But from the moment her plane takes off, Wendy is confronted with unanswerable questions of faith and identity. As she becomes immersed in the rhythm of Israeli life, her sense of distance from it fades. Her ability to be a neutral outside observer terminates abruptly when a student commits a horrible act immediately after his interview with her. Wendy is not sure of how she is implicated in his action, but in her search for understanding, she is led to knowledge and love in unforeseen places. Wendy's plan was to ask questions of others. She finds that the questions she asks of herself are the ones that matter most. Not to be too self-centered here, but a book that centers on modern American Jewish experiences in Israel is something that really speaks to me, and I just really knew that I had to grapple with these questions, and I just can't wait to get to this book. And finally, I'll end on a high note with yet another book that I've already read, huzzah, and I also really loved it. It is The Book of Separation by Tova Mervis. It's a long-awaited memoir by one of my favorite authors, and it's about her leaving her Orthodox faith and, well, not her family, but her marriage, and about changing relationships in her family. But it's so complicated and beautiful and sad, and it's a book that doesn't blame religion. It just shows how life and identity and the questions you ask and the journey you take takes you to unexpected places, and you find the good and the bad. And I feel like I'm rambling here, and I think I might have done a much better job with this in my Goodreads review. And another thing that I did with this book is that because it was one of my anticipated reads of 2017, I just made a blog post about all 5 of my anticipated reads, which I finally read, and I ranked them and talked about them and linked to my reviews, so I will link to that one blog post down below. So that about covers it for me. I'd love to know what you've been hauling and what you've been reading and what you feel about your book hauls. Are they getting a little too excessive or not? I always feel a little bit better when I have books in my haul that I've already read, because I feel like that justifies the buying. But again, I do think I might try to cool it a bit next year. A little bit. Just a little bit. So I hope that all of you celebrating have a wonderful Halloween, and for everyone participating in NaNoWriMo, we have 2 days left, technically under 2 days of Preptober. So get your outlines going and get your fingers ready to type. I'll be with you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.